This is my workshop, but it's not only a workshop, it's a studio, it's an office, it's where I repair bikes, and it's where I shoot pretty much every video on this YouTube channel, or at least it's where I plan it and do something with the video. And it's also my home garage. My kids come in here and play. I keep personal stuff in here, and I've probably outgrown it, but what can I say? Old habits die hard. I'm gonna show you everything in the workshop today. I'm gonna start here in the bike shop. And if we go over here, you can see I have a massive parts bin over here. Anytime I take anything off a bike, even a little screw or something, if it's something unique, it goes in this bin and it's organized meticulously, because if you don't organize the stuff that you're hoarding, then you're just a hoarder. But if you keep it organized, then you're prepared. I can pick out anything I need. I even have a miscellaneous hardware bin that I am really, really strict about. So if it is not miscellaneous hardware, it does not go into here. See, this is miscellaneous hardware. This, the little thing that holds the brake hose on a Fox fork, that is miscellaneous hardware. An extra bolt or nut, that is not miscellaneous hardware, that's misc nuts and bolts. So everything in here is unique, like the bolt for a derailleur. This, I don't even know what that is, but it's miscellaneous. Even strict about that. Now, another thing that I have up here that you might not have in your shop, or maybe you do, a big magnet. And I keep this big magnet on top of this plastic part storage inside a big foam thing, because if this magnet touches anything, you're not getting it off. And so I use this for magnet stuff. Sometimes I do need a really big magnet for something, and so I keep it way in the corner, encased in foam, because yeah, this will break your finger off if it gets close to some steel. Now, also over here, this is a recent thing that I started 3D printing. I kind of 3D printed the perfect parts trays. So when I'm taking something apart, I can organize different nuts and bolts that go different places into different trays, and then I can get to them later. I'll even put labels in them. You see me use labels all the time. I keep a P-touch on this side of the shop and on that side of the shop, so I can always make a label anytime I want. Now, also over here, thread checker. What's a thread checker? Well, if you've been to a hardware store looking for a nut or bolt, sometimes you'll go in with maybe another one of those nuts and bolts, and you keep trying until you know what it is. So if I have a bolt like this, I could say, what is this here? Okay, it doesn't really screw into there. Okay. It's an M10 1.25. So I know the diameter and thread pitch, and then I can go to the hardware store prepared. I've used one of these so many times. I just looked up the company that makes the thread checker, and I just got one for myself, and it's one of my favorite tools in the entire shop. Also, kind of related to the magnet, but kind of not. The magnet would actually not stick to this. Huge brass nut. People talk about brass balls, but this is actually a brass nut. It is extremely heavy. I did polish it over the last few years. I've probably told the story about where this came from at one point. I use it for weighing things down and, you know, just brass nut stuff. This came out of an elevator shaft in a building that was being demolished in New York City. My father is an asbestos abatement project manager, has been for like probably close to 40 years at this point. And yeah, he took this out of an elevator shaft that they were demolishing. He probably shouldn't have. You're supposed to actually put all that stuff aside, but it was probably 35 years ago. And it remains to this day, probably the densest thing in this entire shop. What else do we have here? Favorite tools. So if you look over here at this tool wall, it remains about the same as it did since I built this whole workshop. And the tool that I end up using the most, these right here, these utility scissors. These are some of the best utility scissors I've ever had in my life. They're tiny. It's like a little parrot beak. There's a little indent there, if you can see it, that you can cut a hose or something like that. And I just love them. Opening packages, trimming the side of a brake line that got frayed. There's so many uses for these. I'll even cut grips to size with these. Also, picks. If you don't have good picks in your shop, I keep mine over here on the side of the toolbox because actually they're magnetic. And you can see it's just a little pokey thing. So if you're picking at something, opening up a battery compartment, or just prodding, you use a pick, and somehow I use all of these multiple times per day, every day. That, it appears to just be a bucket, but actually, it's a bucket full of toxic waste. Now, if you work at a bike shop or if you service your own suspension forks, you know that you take the garbage can, you pull it over, you suspend the fork over it on a bike stand, and then when you drop the lowers, all the goop comes out. I've seen a lot of bike shops just use their garbage can and then they just tie it up and throw it out at the end of the day, and they just do that every day. It's probably not the proper way to do it. I keep it all in here, and then periodically I go to the transfer station. There's actually a place where you dump oil and stuff. I haven't done it yet. Every fork I've ever serviced since I got that bucket in here, it's in there. That's why it is filled with like gallons of oil. Yeah, that's kind of one of the weirder things in my shop. Now, moving over here, we have my bike repair stand. This is an electric bike repair stand, and that's important because these days there are a lot of e-bikes that are really, really heavy. I just got done working on the Revo, which is extremely heavy. You'll find out soon how that worked out. I can just press this little guy right here, and the work stand will go up. And another thing that's nice about that is even if you don't mind lifting a heavy bike onto the stand, sometimes you want to adjust the height while you're working on it. And with a normal stand, you have to take like a little quick release and like try and lift the bike and put your foot on the bottom of the stand. It's not pretty, especially when I'm shooting and I want to get different angles. It's so nice to be able to move the stand up and down. But I actually customized it. So to my knowledge, Feedback Sports does not make a tool tray for their electric stand because it's like a moving part, and so I guess it's a liability. But I took the tray that's made for their portable stand, and then I 3D printed a polycarbonate adapter that makes this tool tray fit on it. And actually, my daughter was standing on it and moving the stand, like my son was pressing these buttons and she was standing on here, my 5-year-old. I was like, what are you doing? Get off of that thing. But it's strong apparently, so that's kind of nice. Moving over here, I've got some drawers. This is the most interesting one right here. The battery drawer. I have a lot of different kinds of batteries in here. Calipers run out of batteries very, very quickly. I have lots of little rechargeable batteries. And then they go up here so that I always have them ready. If you are a dad and you're a prepared dad, you have every type of battery there is for kids' toys, and honestly, you're gonna spend a lot less money if you start using rechargeable batteries right now. They're not good for everything, but they're good for a lot of things. What else do we have here? Over here, where Oscar is sitting, I got a gift recently. See, it says Seth right there, and then it says technician. And then check out what it says on the back. Revo repair, no spokes, no problem. I think it's more like no spokes, every problem, but Brian had this made for me. Brian, who lent me his Revo, Brian, Citizen Cycle, he's another YouTube creator. He bought a Revo, lent it to me so that I could hack it here. And I guess regardless of how it was gonna come out, he had this made for me, and it's one of the coolest gifts I've ever gotten. The next time I work on a Revo, I'm definitely gonna wear it. But that's not the only shirt that I got recently. You might remember, what was it called? The Elliptigo. So the people over at Elliptigo, despite making 2 videos just making fun of their bike and mocking it, they wrote me a very nice little postcard here. Hey Seth, thanks again for taking our Elliptigo M subs to places they had never been before. So they made me a custom shirt and they sent it with that. Land jet ski. which is kind of a term that I coined for that thing. So they were just so stoked to see somebody riding the bike in that way. And I must say, I've kind of grown to like the Elliptigo. It's super weird. I like weird bikes. And what we turned it into ended up being really capable. So here, I'm gonna take you around to the wood shop. But first, I wanna show you something that's kind of part of both the bike shop and the wood shop. This staircase right here. Now, when I first put this staircase in, it kind of seemed silly, but it has become so useful. First of all, it's a great place to sit, but also being able to get up and down your workbench easily, it's kind of useful. Just ask Oscar. So I can walk up here, and then I'm storing bikes way up here. I can grab one and then ride it down the stairs or huck off the workbench someplace else. But I can get up here to do all kinds of stuff. Like if there's a problem with my LED lights up here, or I want to grab the plant and water it, or there's other reasons you might want to be on your workbench, but I don't have to climb up. I can just walk upstairs like a civilized human being anytime I want to stand on my workbench. So I'll take you around to the workshop over here, the wood shop. This is kind of a thorn in my side. Like I wake up in the middle of the night thinking about this place and how I have to do something about it. I used to do more woodworking in here, but now it's just a liability because the sawdust gets everywhere. I have like 3D printers and computers in here. So all my woodworking takes place outside. And when I'm here, I'm generally just finding a place to put something. It's just a crap collection area. You can see we have a bunch of camera gear. Some of it we use, some of it we don't use. This is another crap collection cart over here. It's a huge area. Like I could turn this into something, and I'm going to. I just need to put aside the time to do it. But there are some interesting tools here. So first of all, this tool over here has kind of been the MVP lately, a deburring tool. You can see you've cut a pipe. It's all sharp right there. So this is for inside the pipe. And now it's pretty nice. I'm probably not using it properly, and this is a cheap one, but seems to work. Deburring tool. Also over here, a gift from one of my friends, Brian Kennedy, BKXC. Now he started doing something else recently. He's not doing mountain bike YouTube, but when he was a while back, he had this painting commissioned for me. And any of you who've watched my really old videos know what this is. I got on a Mongoose Dolomite fat bike from Walmart, and I took it out into the cruise port when a cruise ship was going out at Port Everglades. And what happens when those ships leave port is they've displaced a bunch of water in the port. And then when they leave, all the water comes rushing back in like a tsunami. And I tried to surf the wake of that on the fat bike, and you just have to watch that video to see how that turned out. But he had that painting commissioned by Sketchy Trails, Christina Waite. And Christina and I became friends, and we wrote a book together. Good Night Bikes. One of the coolest things I've ever taken part in, and it's a good way to teach kids about different things about bikes, and also it's just a good night story for them. Lots of you have gotten Good Night Bikes. Thank you for supporting Christina and I. Hope to make another book with her someday. What I'm thinking I might have to do with this area is turn it into a Clik valve center, because that's becoming a bigger part of what I do. And I'm testing products, I'm getting new products and learning them, I'm helping develop products, and I'm gonna be making tutorials for the Clik website. So it would be nice to have all my Clik valve stuff laid out here. One thing my kids like doing is actually pumping up tires. And so I have this pump over here. It has the Clik head on it, and then if you remember this wheel over here, it's got every type of valve on it. It's got Dunlop, Schrader, Presta, all in the same tire. I made this to make that Presta video, and my kids will just push this on. My 5-year-old can attach a Clik head to this, and she just pumps it up, and then she asks me to let the air out, and then she pumps it up again. That's what kids like to do. They like to use the pump. If they're pumping up the tire to their own bike, they will pump it up halfway and then get sick of it and ask you to do the rest of it. But what can I say? Moving on, we're gonna move on to bay 2. Now, bay 2 is the center bay in my 3-car garage here. And I generally leave it pretty empty. Like, there's a lot of space over here on the floor because sometimes space is an asset. Sometimes you need to lay something out. Sometimes you need to paint something or work on something or take something apart that's big and messy, and you just need an open space to do it. And so I make it a point not to fill up this bay with crap because having this space is very valuable. But I do keep some stuff here. So first of all, the cradle thing, I don't know what you would call it, a bike hoist or something. I kind of made fun of it a little bit when I was reviewing it, but it's become pretty valuable. It keeps my tall bike off the ground. The only complaint I have about it is that the bike tends to rotate. Maybe it would have been better to use straps instead of like cables. And so I have this little guy over here attached to the tall bike to keep the tall bike from rotating because that would bother me. And then here are the other bikes. So starting from left to right next to my charging station over here, we have bikes in a rack over here. We have Amy's bike, which has the seat on it. We have some camera backpacks over here. Curtis and I both have separate backpacks with separate camera gear in them because if you share camera gear, everything is done to the lowest common denominator. Now, I'm not implying that the lowest common denominator is Curtis, but everybody has their strengths and weaknesses. So my camera settings and my camera setups frustrate Curtis. Like, I don't use straps on the camera, and then I really like having a big battery on it so I don't have to worry about it. Curtis runs his camera completely differently. And so if we both have separate camera gear, we're always prepared. We always know where all the settings are. We always have the setup that we like. And so we have 2 Peak Design backpacks that we got on sale. Combined, they cost as much as 1 when they're not on sale. And they're filled with our Sony A7S3s and Curtis's FX3. Moving on over here, we have a bike that we all love, the Penny Farthing. Now, as some of you know, I made a set of custom pedals for it. These are 3D printed, and they work just fine. I might make a CNC'd metal set someday, but I've been enjoying these. I take my Penny Farthing out in the driveway anytime anybody comes over my house, and I try to make them ride it. I've had a few people almost go down the driveway. But one problem that I've had with the Penny Farthing is storing it and trying to figure out a way to just stand it up. And so I have this little stand here, totally inadequate for holding a Penny Farthing, but it does stabilize it. And so I can put it in this stand and then kind of lean it up against something. After it almost fell on my kids for a few times, I realized that was not adequate. And so I 3D printed this guy over here. And it's been flawless. I mean, the penny really, really stays up now. I can pull it back, and then of course it wants to fall over. And so I just slide it into that little 3D printed mount, and we're good to go. So, moving on. Bike shop, wood shop, camera graveyard. I made notes because I knew we weren't going to be editing this. The garbage area. Now, right now, the garbage area is in pretty good shape. This is how many boxes I have here from like a Costco run. Normally, it's like a pile of boxes this big because not only am I running a business here, but if you're a dad, you know you are the box breaker downer chief of the house, I guess. And so they just open that door and they're like here you go, like you deal with this. And it's to the point where like garbage gets mixed into the boxes too, and I'm supposed to deal with that. So like there'll be like a diaper in one of the boxes, and then Curtis comes in to edit, and now he's just got to smell diaper the whole time. Now things have gotten better. Maybe I'm exaggerating. Maybe that only happened once and we were really busy. And I probably do things like that too. But yeah, that's kind of like a huge job that I have, is just breaking down boxes every single day. And then when I do, more boxes arrive. I don't know why I keep all the ladders in here. I only need a ladder in here every so often. After all, I have stairs on my workbench. I should put them someplace else, but they're here. As you can see, the end of Bay 2 definitely becomes a staging area for certain things. I have the trailer that I use to recover that transformer shell. Leaf blower here. And then a pile of cinder blocks. I got these cinder blocks for a video that I decided in the end not to make. I just decided it was a bad idea, and so the cinder blocks remain. But then last night, I had an idea, and I said, wait a minute, I have all those cinder blocks, that's perfect. And so actually on the front of this notepad, I'll give you a quick sneak peek of what I'm planning here. But yeah, I'm gonna need the cinder blocks for that. And so they're gonna remain here until we're done building this apparatus. Now, moving on from the garbage area, we have the mezzanine. Now you remember when I set up this mezzanine, it kind of doubled the space in one of my bays so that I could have an office that's separate from all the dirty stuff, from the sawdust, from the bike parts, from the boxes, from the diapers, from everything. The office stays really nice and clean. And you can see we have a nice little staircase to go up here. When I closed down the Burn Peak Ranger Station, I took a lot of the artwork and artifacts from there and I hung them up over here. And so it's kind of cool. You'll walk up the steps. Oh, Oscar's gonna be devastated if I don't take him with me. Okay. We go up the steps, and then up here, we have this little door that just pushes outwards. There you go, Oscar. We had skylights installed so that we had nice natural light over here. And then, I mean, what is there to say? We've got our computers. We've got a meeting area over here. And we have a view off the top. Actually, why don't you step over here, Curtis, and I'll show them the view. So one thing that's kind of cool about the mezzanine is that I can stand here and look out at my kingdom over here. You can get kind of a view of the shop that you would normally not get. And from up here, it probably looks smaller. Everybody who visits here, anybody who's seen this on video and then comes to my shop, looks around and they say, huh, it's smaller in real life. And I've been to places I've seen on video too, and I usually say the same thing. It's a 3-car garage, right? If you have a 2-car garage, it's 1 bay bigger. We do have an unusually high ceiling, but in terms of footprint, it's 50% bigger than a 2-car garage. It's not super huge, but we've made really good use of the space by using this mezzanine. There's something in this mezzanine that I want to show you. It's a little bit embarrassing. I've definitely closed the loop on a lot of things lately and kind of opened up about a lot of things in my personal life with the YouTube channel. And the last few years, since the pandemic, were kind of difficult for me for a lot of reasons. And somehow, through all that, I took every single one of my play buttons and I sort of just stuffed them down here. I don't have them hanging up anymore. I felt like I didn't deserve to have it on display. I didn't want to draw attention to that. And so I stuck them all in here. 2 million play buttons, one for Burn Peak Express, one for Seth's Bike Hacks. I got this when it was still called Seth's Bike Hacks. And then 2 silver play buttons. These are the cheapo ones that they used to send you back in 2015, 2016. And then they became a little bit more refined. And there's ant poop on it. I probably should hang these up, but I don't know. Subscribers don't matter. And I don't mean that you guys don't matter. I mean that your actual subscriber count doesn't matter. Because there's people with 10 million subscribers and nobody watches their videos. And so it's not a good measure of how you're doing or how you're making the world a better place. So maybe I will hang them up again at some point. But they've been down here for quite a bit. And I don't know. It might be time to bring them back out again. But there's my notepad. We're gonna go back down. These are the scariest stairs ever. People have almost died on these stairs. When I put together the mezzanine, there were different options for the angle of the stairs, and I was afraid it wouldn't clear the door, and I just went way too hard. And so I would really recommend you go backwards when you go down these stairs. But I have to carry Oscar down here. Come here, buddy. See, he knows the drill. He goes right here. Because we do it every day. Right, buddy? And then I can show you what's under the mezzanine, which is the laboratory, Neckbeard Laboratories. Let me show you this place. Now, when I first built Neckbeard Laboratories, I knew I was going to be doing laboratory stuff in here. It's very quickly become the most used part of the shop, the most important part of the shop. I'm always 3D printing here. I'm always tinkering with electronics because e-bikes have become such a big thing. And then even if I'm making a little bike part that doesn't have to do with electronics, I have my computer, I have my 3D printer, I have my hardware, I have everything here. So I'll give you a rundown of what all this is. This is my big soldering iron. Plugs into the wall. It's for soldering like battery terminals and bigger stuff. Then I have some little wrenches and things. I've got my cheapo multimeter, which I printed a base for. Some little tools over here. I 3D printed this little guy to hold little like quick grab tools on the bench. So like check out these little Nipex end nippers, which are the best ever. Check this out. How awesome is that? Don't you want that? And I got my high gauge wire strippers. Then over here, I have my soldering iron that is for really tiny stuff. So much smaller tip, usually not as hot, cordless, which is kind of nice. Then I have my breadboard. I have my home server. Yeah, I don't care that I'm showing you my IP address because it's local. This is for just running little tiny websites and applications that work locally. Why I need that, I'm not going to get into, but I should probably set up a different kind of server. I could even use that computer for it, but I use the $15 microcontroller. What can I say? This is my power supply over here. If you come around to the front over here, you can see I have it set to about 24 volts because over here on the breadboard, I have a Bosch thermostat wired up. Why? Well, I just removed 2 Bosch thermostats from my house. This is the worst thermostat. This is the worst product I've ever used in my entire life. Absolutely terrible. So I replaced my thermostats and now I'm like, well, it's got a screen. I could probably hack it. Why don't I find an e-bike with a Bosch powertrain and then make this the screen and then make like the temperature go up and down as you're going faster and slower? I don't know. If there's any interest in watching me do that, then maybe I'll do that. Over here, I've got a big drawer. And I have the kind of stuff that I use over here. Multimeter leads and jumpers, test equipment, like little UART serial controller. I have this guy right here. This actually replaced my old one. So this is what I used to use. See, it's like a little metal weight and it's got 2 little alligator clips. So you can like clip a circuit board in and then a wire over here to hold it in place while you're like connecting it. This one's a lot better. I have all these magnetic arms that I can stick down here and hold things in place. These are for holding circuit boards and things. It's been a great addition. I don't think I'm ever gonna go back to this little alligator clip guy. And then right over here is the playroom. Now, why did I put a playroom in my laboratory? Well, I felt weird putting desks and workbenches in front of the windows. I love the windows. And increasingly, I come in here to tend to stuff on the weekends, and my kids are just playing around my workshop, like running around with hammers and circular saws and stuff. And so I wanted a place that they would want to be. And so we've got a little chair over here. We have this little workbench over here. You can see we have Rebecca's toolbox, which is filled with crayons and stuff. We've got Beanies' toolbox, which is filled with Benny tools. And then you can see there's some artwork over here. Judging by the lines on this Rastafarian rainbow, I think she was drawing on the floor here, and the actual kind of texture of the floor was taken on through the paper over here. But if you look carefully, at this picture that my 5-year-old drew, she's got a little picture of Oscar there. That's a grumpy pup, we call it. And a grumpy pup is something very easy that you or your kids can draw. Oh, we have bikes up there. I'll show you how to draw a grumpy pup really quick because it's super easy and there are not a lot of steps to it. So we'll go here. So you make a circle. Then you make the ears. Then you make a big upside down smile. And then you put some teeth. And then the further apart you make the eyes, the more deranged it is. And then you make a big old nose. And then if you want to add a body, you can. That's a grumpy pup. Very easy to make, and you can show your kids how to do it. It only takes about 10 seconds. But as I was standing up, I bumped into something. We keep all the kids' bikes over here. So we've got Beanies' balance bike. This was Rebecca's, but I changed it into Beanies. I put a little red bell in here. I took the unicorn, changed it into a dinosaur, and he's been ripping around on this thing. He gets all the hand-me-downs, but what can I say? This is gonna be his bike. This is Rebecca's mountain bike. I've been trying to find a 16-inch inner tube with a removable valve core so I can put Clik valves on this, but for now it doesn't, and so I got to attach the pump head for her. We've got some other balance bikes and things that we lend to people when they come by, and these are up here securely enough where I'm not worried about them falling on my kid's head, but that concern has been raised. But I've hit into them enough times to know that they're not just gonna fall down. Moving over here, we've got the 3D printing area. So this computer used to be the most powerful computer in my entire shop. It was the most powerful computer I ever owned. It was an iMac Pro with like 64 gigabytes of RAM and everything maxed out, and we edited on it. I did all my 4K editing. Now, you can barely run a web browser on it. It's crazy how everything just gets slower and slower and slower. But I do 3D modeling and 3D printing stuff on it, workshop stuff. And then below the printer, I have my hardware drawers. So I'm gonna show you here. The top drawer has a bunch of tools, quick grab items and things like that. You see I've been 3D printing organizers. This is the hardware. I just recently organized it, and actually it's so organized, I have headroom. I have a big space over here. I have empty bins. This used to be so filled with hardware that I couldn't even close the drawer, and now the same amount of hardware fits in here because I printed these organizers. I still have to put labels over here, but overall, this is my favorite hardware drawer I've ever had. Now, below this is where things start to get really grimy. This is my computer drawer. This is my microcontroller stuff. I've got little cheap yellow displays and buck converters and little speakers and sensors and everything. And I've been digging into this really, really seriously lately because we've been messing with stuff we shouldn't mess with. Below, we have the power tools. I'll show you a few of my favorite power tools. Ryobi hot glue gun. I got this, I don't know how many years ago. Still works great. It heats up so fast. It gets so hot. Great for tacking things together, prototyping. Somewhat recently, I got this little blower. It's great for cleaning things off, great for drying things off. Just got a little USB-C charger and blows way harder than it should. Then, I don't even want to show you this drawer. This is kind of like e-bike stuff graveyard. Yeah. It's a metal drawer. There are a couple of lithium-ion batteries in there, but it's fine. So now, moving over here, we have the actual 3D printing area. And you can see I've got my filament up here. These are both AMS2 Pros. This one was broken for the longest time. So much, in fact, that I got another one, but I recently fixed it. I had the time to take it all apart and get it working again. And so now I have like my engineering filament in here, and then I have my cheap fun filament that's for making toys and organizers and parch trays. So I know 3D printer filament is gonna bore some of you guys to tears, and so I'll go through it really, really quickly. This is carbon fiber infused PET G. It's very easy to print on. It's pretty strong and it looks really good when it's done. So I'll use that for sort of functional parts that I wanna print quickly. This is Matter Hacker's PCTG. It's a little harder to print, but it's super, super tough, and it's quickly becoming one of my favorite filaments for really functional parts. This is my favorite filament ever, Prusament PC Blend. Prints really easy, really nice finish, super tough. And then this is Matter Hacker's Nylon X, which is a carbon fiber infused nylon 12, super tough, pretty ductile, and then the carbon fiber keeps it from warping. And then, as I said, this is all PLA. This is what you prototype stuff on. This is what you print stuff that doesn't really need to be super strong or have any particular properties. It's cheap, super easy to print. This is made of PLA. That's the only thing I use it for, really. Except for actually, duties. Now, I put a note up on my 3D printer over here, duties, because I didn't want to forget to show you guys the duties. So, when my 3D printer is getting prepped to print, it goes through a whole rigmarole where it extrudes a little bit of filament, and then it wipes the nozzle clean, and the extra little bit of filament, the poop, it comes down this purple chute over here. In this purple chute, I have this little toilet, the 3D printer duty tray. So all the filament duties, they go in here, and then around the holidays, I give my kids glass jars and they fill up all the colorful little filament duties, and we make like duty ornaments. I just made that up, but we should do that. Now, before I had this, it just kind of went behind the workbench, and I thought, it's 3D printer filament. It's not like I'm sending like food waste back there. And so then I would have my kids, I'd say, okay, it's time to get the duties. It's time to harvest some duties. So they'll climb underneath here and they'll go back and get some. I bet there's still some back there. Let's see. Yeah, look at that. Just harvested some more filament duties that missed the toilet. Okay, I'll stop saying that word. But yeah, if you have a 3D printer, you're gonna end up with these when it's just purging and trying to get the old filament out from the last print job so that it can start new. You get these little guys and they all go into this little toilet, and I designed this little guy so that it hits the backboard and then dunks. And this is the wires from my little filament heater over here can go underneath it. So it fits very nicely. Now, moving on over here, we have the actual 3D printer, which is a Bamboo Labs H2D. This is kind of the one to get. Super easy to use. Look, it seems like I'm a 3D printing fanatic, that like I really love it, but actually it's a means to an end for me. It's not a hobby. If it were up to me, like if I could replace 3D printing with like some other way to make the thing where I don't have to deal with spaghetti messes and messing with print settings, I would do it. But 3D printing is the best way. I'm about making things. I'm about the thing. 3D printing right now is just the best way to make the thing, prototype the thing. And so I love it. I'm so happy it exists. But 3D printing itself is not a hobby for me. Making things is a hobby for me. But this thing has really been putting in a lot of work for me. You can see I printed out a little tray for the build plates. Ooh, I'm giving away something if you could see the imprint on that one that I didn't clean off. I keep some little tools and things over here for just grabbing filament, tweezers. I've got a filament dryer over here. And then in this cabinet and down here, it's just all different kinds of filament. This little guy is a little polycarbonate 3D printed jack that I made that I use for many different things, just holding something in place when I'm working on it. I don't know why it's right down there, but it is. And then, check my notes so I'm not missing anything. Filament duties, Grumpy Pup, toolboxes. that pretty much covers this area. I have another place in my workshop to show you, and actually we have to go over to the bike shop for me to show it to you. You might remember I put a fire pole in my bike shop. This is the fire pole right here, and where does it come from? Well, it comes from the attic. There's an attic above here. This ceiling is super high, and there's another ceiling above it. And you can see there's a little trap door. So I keep a lot of my bike parts and bikes and all sorts of stuff up in the attic. And if I need to get up there, all I have to do is climb the pole. And so Curtis is gonna meet me up there. The audio might cut out for a second, but it'll come back in. So I'm gonna get up into the attic here. I'll see you in a minute. Okay. Curtis likes using the stairs for some reason. This is way better. Okay. The attic needs work. I had this perfectly organized at one point. It's not that bad. You can still see the floor. But this attic, I've really outgrown. I really have to reorganize it, but super hot up here. I keep all sorts of bikes. I keep all sorts of bike parts, tires, wheels, you name it. But I'm not gonna be able to talk very much now that I'm out of breath and I climbed that pole. So really, thank you guys for joining me today on this shop tour. If you want to see more unedited stuff like this, let me know. I can show you actually how to 3D print something from modeling it to getting it out of the printer. Let me know. Thanks for riding with me today. I'll see you next time.